right, so hello, welcome to the Corpus Christi Songwriters podcast. I'm Jules.
I'm Jimmy.
And I'm Garrett.
This is our first episode, so we'd like to welcome this theoretical audience that doesn't actually exist yet. But if you're here, we imagine that you like live music, that you like songwriters, that you like maybe the activity of songwriting. Perhaps you've attempted to write a few songs. Perhaps you're writing songs all the time and you're just like a seasoned pro and you're just here to check out some chatter from other songwriters hanging out. But in this podcast overall, you'll find not just biographies and backgrounds on songwriters, artists, musicians, sidemen, drummers, rhythm players, etc. We mean to be inclusive of not just musicians in the scene, but other writers and other people who are fans, and you will probably be here to discover how we accomplish all of this as we go along and do it. Guys, how we doing?
Pretty good.
Yeah, doing well.
Pretty good for a Thursday. I gotta be honest.
Yeah, how are you doing?
I have a charmed existence, brother. I am dopamine through my head, seeing new girls. So I don't even know if I can answer that question accurately.
That sounds dangerous.
It is dangerous. Like, you shouldn't even let me out in public. It's like totally off-brand for me to be a smiley and chipper when like my whole brand is like black and white.
I know.
Dark shit, you know.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know. It's unbecoming of me, man.
Black and white and daisies.
Right. It's like, here's this guy who's broody. What's he doing? Taking pictures of hummingbirds? Yeah, man. So we're hanging out here in Jimmy's apartment. I've never been here before.
Yeah, I've never let anybody in this apartment.
There's nothing wrong with it. I like it. I especially like this guitar.
Y'all are the first to walk through these doors.
I really love the furniture style. Like chest of drawers TV.
Yeah, except for the flat, screen TV. Everything else could exist in the 1980s period.
That's what I was thinking.
Just to clue listeners in here, I didn't actually notice this until but you pointed it out.
I didn't. So it just was so natural. I was like, oh my God, that TV's straight from 1984.
There's like a wooden furniture piece here of an RCA CRT.
300 pounds.
That's
not more.
Holding up a flat screen right now.
It's probably holding the apartment.
It's my TV stand. It ties the room together.
It ties the room together, man. Do those shelves underneath work?
I haven't opened them. I'm kind of afraid to.
But that was like a conscious choice. Because usually when there's TVs on top of TVs, it's like we just didn't move the other one, and it was like a comical thing.
I mean, honestly, that's from my childhood. I remember the one like this cratering, and then immediately my dad put a TV on top of it.
Doubles as furniture.
When this came in, I'm like, this is exactly what I'm going to do.
It's pretty awesome,
and it works.
Totally.
Dude.
Oh my God, dude.
I'm really curious if those shelves underneath work.
Are you going to go check this out right now?
Right now.
I'm afraid there's spiders and...
No,
they're fake shelves that are built into this CRT television. There are probably capacitors inside that television that are still charged. And should you ever wish to dismantle that, CRT television here, it's probably not a good idea.
Eventually, I would like to. I've never
use it for. Well, it's got to be used for something.
It's here. I love that we're CC Songwriters. We're talking about this TV.
It's a prop.
It's a prop for a movie that I'm going to be making in the future here shortly, and so it's here for the time being, but it'll be gone soon.
It's awesome.
Probably in like 5 years. It'll still be here.
It's like it just reminds me of Videodrome. I just want to get too close to it, put my head in it.
I just remember laying on the ground at like 5 years old, watching MTV on a TV like this.
Mm-hmm.
Just brings it all back.
Yeah, man. So we were talking a little bit before we hit record about how it might feel a little strange to talk about our own stuff and what we've done and things, but like any songwriter out there, I'm sure listeners that are maybe new to this have the same sort of contradiction they live with, where they feel kind of weird and salesman-like when they start talking about the accolades or the things they've done, or even just sharing some of their art that they've made produces this internal affect of like, wow, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Maybe this is incredibly narcissistic or something, or self-involved.
I feel like I can never trust a songwriter that's really good about promoting themselves.
Right.
It's hard. It's a hard thing. And none of us we don't know how to do it very well.
Yeah. The performer side, comes out more than the songwriter side. It's the dichotomy of the artist versus everything else. And just tough.
It's tough. Yeah.
Yeah, it is, man. It's rough. It's like I'd like to tell you where I've been, but then that also has its own complications. It's like if I found that like once like had to go work at an Olive Garden after working at a production company and like so they're like, "What'd you do before?"
What did you do?
Yeah, and I was like,
really wanna know?
yeah, and I was like, well, I was like, doing gear rental and sending equipment out to like, places in the city or whatever, and like, like we rent the equipment to like Rachel Ray, and she just had fucking Avril Lavigne on her show, but I just like you get this response of like, and from the person that's at the Olive Garden that's working alongside me. We're both wearing the ties and shit, and they're like, "Oh, what's wrong with that? You didn't like doing that?" It's like the same thing with being an adjunct professor or something. It's like you get a weird look at the end, like you're not with the university anymore.
Yeah,
it's like, no, I
still get that sometimes.
Yeah.
Yep, I was adjunct for a long time.
Yeah, man. So all that to say, listeners who are just joining the show don't really know who any of us are and what we do, and so we're just going to dispense with all of those internal affects of negativity towards talking about what we've done when I asked Jimmy to now tell me his life story about who he is. And this is actually like an initiation for me as well, because I'm friends with both of you guys, but I'm relatively new to the scene, as I'll talk about, I guess, in a little bit. But so I'm not actually in all the know of like the things that you both have done. So maybe we'll start with you, Jimmy. Like, you're a director, dude. You're a writer, like all this stuff. So tell me.
I'm gonna, bring it back to why we're here for Corpus Christi Songwriters eventually, because that's honestly that's part of the whole thing, right?
Yeah. Like I had kind of started hosting this thing, but you're really the guy, though.
We'll get there. But I've been making movies since I don't know, was 20 years old, and I've been a journalist for over 10 years now, for several publications across Texas, and beyond. And most of my life since I was 14 years old, I've, picked up the guitar, played shows, and been on several national tours solo and with my group Yash and Yimi. But, the main thing that I like to talk about is, waking up on my 30th birthday, coming up 10 years ago, almost. And I woke up kind of freaking out, like I felt like every porcelain of my body just vibrating, and it was like, what's happening? Like, I was freaking out that I turned 30. There's more to it than that, and I just immediately had this idea that like I need to start a songwriters association here, and it was literally that moment. And within an hour, I made the Facebook page and everything, and then it grew. In April, I was in a band called Hope and Hostility back in 2014. In April, we went to Casey at House of Rock here locally, and he let us start hosting In the Rounds there.
In the Rounds was there, yeah.
And so that's my proudest thing. That's the thing I'm the most proud of, and what I would call like, our claim to fame in general is the Corpus Christi Songwriters. And I can't believe that it's been almost 10 years. It'll be 10 years in January. That's when it started.
When did I join, Jimmy? It was like not long after,
It was 2015 or 16.
Okay, yeah.
It began with once I, went to Hope and Hostility, and then within a couple of months, Hope and Hostility I split up with them. Whatever. We weren't playing together anymore. And so I brought in local musicians, David Martinez and Stephen Alford, Stephen James, I don't know what he wants to go by. And we became what was, I guess, the first board, if you will. Yeah. And then we invited you in a few months later after that, right? So, and then Abby came on board, and it just kind of grew from there.
And then sometime not long after that, we did a showcase at the Ritz.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we ended up getting like under the Ritz thing, right? Or was it before? Did we?
It was a little bit before that.
Okay.
When it became.
I just remember those kind of happened at the same time, and then we went under their nonprofit, and then did a showcase at the Ritz with me, you, Stephen Hansen, David Martinez, and Stephen Alford.
Yeah, Stephen James.
Right? Was there somebody else? Or
I think that was it. Yeah,
that was cool.
I feel like we're leaving somebody out, but we aren't.
So I think that was it. It was basically a true song swap. We just got on stage at the Ritz, which, man, have you been in there, Jules?
Dude, I have not. I've heard so much about this place.
Just, man, acoustic wise, the sound in there is just incredible, and that song swap was well attended. It was a great, we just basically went down the line and played songs and kind of answered each other with songs. And that was really one of the first times, I don't know if you felt it, but I felt it. I was like, this is a viable thing and it's cool what it needs to be.
It was a magical night.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was very cool.
And that's honestly one of the first moments where we're like, oh, we need to do more things like this.
This is the thing. Yeah, this is the thing. And people seem to like it. So, yeah.
And now we do festivals.
I know. Oof, man.
Yeah.
Stressing me out just saying that.
And tell me about you, Garrett.
My trajectory is pretty much the same as yours. I came to Corpus.
You make movies too?
No, I wish. No, but I came to Corpus in 2003 for college and was an adjunct professor there for a long time doing I have a master's in composition and rhetoric from there. So I taught and during grad school I taught freshman English, freshman writing, and I did that for a couple of years and basically couldn't pay rent anymore. So I went over to Half Price Books, was a bookseller for 10 years. And all the time that I was doing that, though, I was in bands. I started in bands right when I got to college, and I was not really a singer. I was aspiring to be a songwriter. I kind of started doing a little bit in high school, and I thought that was the thing that I really wanted to do. And so when I got into college, I just kind of very meekly and kind of like quietly started singing my songs and stuff. And then we started working on a project together with me and my buddy, Ben Howard. I don't know if you guys have ever met Ben, but he was my go-to guy when we first started recording. And my dream had always been to record an album. And so somewhere along there, we recorded this crazy, way out at Third Coast Studios in Port A. An off time. Ben was doing sound there. And at night when there was no one around, we would not sneak in. We were allowed to come in, but we would record at night. And so one day I'll release it. There's a kind of a psychedelic folk rock album that I have just kind of sitting there. That happened, and I ended up we would play maybe a couple times a week, and then somewhere along the line I ended up I started hanging out with a guy named David King at some of the open mics at Executive Surf Club, which is, where a lot of us got our start, the open mic Wednesday nights with Ray Summey. Yeah,
we can do a whole series of shows on that alone.
Yeah, dude, Ray, that was formative for us, man, having Ray have that open mic and us being able to go. That's where Jimmy and I really met. Mm-hmm. That's where I met David King. Most of the musicians that I've met in Corpus and have stayed, friends in contact with was at the open mic at Surf Club.
Definitely my first place to play live, period.
Yeah. First place that there was a backline, that they had a band that I could step up there and say, you guys know this, or we'll just do this in this key. And, it was amazing. Yeah. And so I met David King there, and David and I started jamming together. David's just hyping it, does a little bit of everything, plays mandolin, plays guitar, sings, incredible harmonies, great songwriter. So we started jamming, and that's how the Independent Thieves came around, which is the band that we're not doing as many shows now, but we still function, here and there. And we released an album in 2015. And then right before the pandemic, we were kind of not playing as many shows because life stuff happens, and we were all busy with family. And so I ended up slowly recording an album with Mason Shirley out in Skidmore.
That's funny. I did the same thing.
Yeah, quite little at a time. Recorded an album with him.
With Mason Shirley.
Yeah, with Mason, and put out that album in June of 2021. And that was kind of my sad cowboy songs is what I call them. Weird songs about obscure Western figures.
That should have been the title of the album.
Sad cowboy songs, yeah. But all that time that I was doing that, I was also the radio DJ for a show called Some Call It Folk on the local NPR affiliate. It was there.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I did the folk show. Folk show had been around for probably 20 years before I started, and it was a Sunday night show, 7 to 9, and they basically kind of gave me free reign to play stuff that was folk and singer-songwriter. And so a lot of that stuff kind of dovetailed with CC Songwriters, and we used a little bit to promote the festival. And
I miss having our festival night there.
I know. They since replaced the program, and it's a bummer.
Heartbreaking.
I know. So I was doing that at the time, working at the bookstore. During COVID, of course, everything went to hell. And so I ended up getting a new job, a researcher position, and just playing music when I could, trying to be a little bit more proactive with playing out more, going out to play. Like Jimmy and I are going to be going to Houston next week, and then we played the Old Quarter a couple of months ago, and we'll be going back in December to play. And so trying to be a little bit more, go out and kind of promote the album, because the album came out and COVID got worse again, and so I didn't really get to do anything with it. Didn't get to play any shows. I'm gonna leave anything out.
I think you told your life story.
That's pretty much it. Oh, journalism-wise, I was a journalist for a long time too. I started out with journalism in college.
That's right.
And so I ran the school paper I was the editor-in-chief.
We are leaving one thing out.
What?
You're married.
Oh, yeah, I'm married.
To Abby,
And
who's a big part of this whole thing.
Basically, yeah. So in 2015, Abby and I got married. She's our logistics person. She's a genius. So she's,
Yeah, we wouldn't be an organization if it wasn't for Abby.
You're telling me, my gosh. She basically, Jules, I don't know if we've ever told you, she gets us all the contracts together for the artists. She gets host homes for them, finds out, who can take them on what nights. If they need a hotel, she books all that stuff. Is always in contact with the artists about how to get the money to them, and just like,
No, need someone like that for sure.
Yeah.
Dude,
We need two of her so she doesn't have to work.
Yes, we need it.
Oh my God.
But then the song CC Songwriters, in the middle of all of that, CC Songwriters came along, and we started doing the second Sunday every month. Moved over to Surf Club
From House of Rock.
Yeah, from House of Rock. We were doing House of Rock. We still play a lot of House of Rock shows too. House of Rock's our home away from home, along with Surf Club. But then really started 5 years ago. I think Rick Holful was the one that was like, let's do a festival.
Yeah, took me out to lunch. He called me up and said,
Rick,
can I take you out to lunch? And I'm like, sure.
Absolutely.
I'll never pass up for lunch. And, so he took me to this local place called Sugar Bakers, which is literally hop and a skip from where I live right now.
So good.
I've never said hop and a skip before, by the way.
Well, you didn't. Yeah. Now you did.
Now I have. And so at this lunch, he brought up the fact that Corpus Christi needed a festival, and I remember bringing it up to the group, like, we really did have a festival years ago, but we just weren't there yet. But having Rick in my ear saying it's time to have a festival,
let's do this,
it like lit a fire under us, and so every time I see Rick, anytime I'm on stage with him or introducing him when he's about to play some of his songs, I always bring up the fact that we wouldn't be doing the Corpus Christi Songwriters Festival if it wasn't for Rick Holful.
It's true. He was like, we'll do this with you guys, or I'll just do it. Like, either way, it's going to happen. And we're like, okay. And so, it was it's still very homemade. It's still very skeleton crew. We've gotten to the point where we've gotten volunteers and stuff. But the first year, it was very much us just running around, setting up PAs, making sure people got to the places. We kept it kind of small. And then by the third year, it got pretty big. We had 3 days. That was right before COVID. And it was wildly successful. It was insane.
Yeah.
And we'll be coming up on the 5th year.
This will be our fifth year
festival
coming up in 2024.
5 years, man.
Yeah,
I know.
We had to skip some years because of
COVID. It would be I think our 7th, if not for COVID. So
Right.
7th, or I guess 5th festival, 10th year as an organization coming up. It's exciting.
Pretty cool.
That is super cool, man. I will say that being fresh to the scene, as I said before, man, like, I came back to this town and I was delighted to find at least some kind of soft online congregation of the writers in this town. Not only that there was like a once a month in-person gathering, but that there was like 1,000 people who followed the page, who were members of the group or so, right? And as a songwriter, so much of what we do is such a solid, it's really solipsistic in a lot of ways, man. It's like you sit there with your own thoughts, with your own feelings, and you like imagine into what these things on the page might be. And so it's rather more difficult than it sounds to get songwriters together to actually come out of it. And even co-writing, it's like awkward,
I don't get it yet. One day I hope to.
Yeah.
But
it's letting the ego go.
It's true. We have a lot of folks. I mean, Rick, he's great at it. There's a lot of folks that do it, and I swear by it.
I feel at this point I can just say artists in general are as good as sponge. I've said it about filmmakers. You get filmmakers in a room, we're all just like afraid to talk to each other. It's the same. There's a lot of talk with songwriters. Get them in the room. It takes some lubrication sometimes, and other things just to get people to really talk and interact, and sometimes write songs together or whatever. So just artists in general, skittish.
Just very skittish. Yeah, I'm scared. Don't look at me. But look at me. Yeah. I'm on stage, but don't look at me.
Right. All right. It's like
don't talk at me.
That culture's a little different when you get to Nashville, and it's like, oh, they're gonna take your lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a little weird. Like I'll tell you a little bit of like
I don't even want to think about.
my whole story is that not that just we're going around doing the intro. I just want to get through this. We can get to the other talking points too, man. But I'll tell you that like I grew up in the Valley, which is not too far from here, and I had to get the hell out, and I did not even know recording schools existed. Like at the time, it was like 2005, and I guess Delmar was just starting up, but I had no idea about it. Yeah. And I mean, I've since like met Paul Bissell and hung out with him and told him, I was like, I don't even know if I had known that this existed, I might not have ever left. Yeah. But I went to Arizona for like 9 months to go to the school called the Conservatory of Recording Arts out there.
Nice.
And then from there, I moved straight to Nashville. Yeah. And did an internship and was an assistant for a little while at Starstruck Studios, which is Reba McEntire's place. And nice. I had spent about 10 years in Nashville, and I taught at a place called the International Academy of Design and Technology, and I taught mostly everything that they had to offer in audio. I think there was like 1 or 2 courses. I might have not, like advanced mixing, because it's like the guy that owns the studio. Yeah. He has to teach that course with all the equipment and the toys, you know. So, but I met a girl there who was a writer, and we were writing together, and I was helping her cut her demos of that stuff for her label, and they gave her a publishing deal, and she was from Woodstock, New York. Nice. And I met her in Nashville, and so I ended up moving to New York with her. And then that's how I got there, dude. That's why I left Nashville. I didn't think
because of the band.
No, dude. No. And like, which, you know, is wild because like, you know, living in Nashville and seeing these pictures of like, say like Towns and Guy on their footstools like that, or on their stoop. Like that's so many stoops in East Nashville and in Green Hills and shit. Right. But like, it's only later having that same kind of feeling when you're looking at like Elliot Landy photographs or something, and you're like, that's the town that I was in. That was right there, dude. You know, weird. It's wild. So I went to New York to follow this girl, and I was riding with her, and I was cutting her demos, and I was assembling kind of a crew of musicians around her, and then a lot of things just started crumbling, dude. Like the publishing deal fell through. The label crumbled, right? And then our relationship dissolved, and it was like, it really spun me out, dude. So like you earlier when you were saying you turned 30, dude, and you were like, you know, I had a very similar moment about 30 years old where I looked up at all these guitars on my walls, man. Yeah. And I was like, you've worked on a lot of people's records, dude, but when are you going to work on your own record? Yeah. And, you know, I find I really get along with people that have that like instinct to where like they can do so much for somebody else or everybody else, but when do you turn that energy inward, you know? And so that's when I was like, okay, I got a broken heart from this girl. I don't know what I'm doing in these mountains in this town. Yeah. But you know, I've lost enough dignity and respect at this point that why not just go embarrass myself on stage and try this shit out? Yes. Is what it really was.
What it came up.
Yeah.
Best thing to do.
I know. It's awesome.
So I had a band that I cut an album with at first called Earle. Yeah.
Is that the band or
that was the band?
Earle, yeah.
Earle, yeah.
Like Earle, yeah.
Earle, yeah. And it's on Spotify with no monthly listeners and shit. I mean, whatever, you know, it's a 5-song album. It's really grungy sounding, you know. I was wearing like a motorcycle jacket trying to experiment with all that shit. Yeah.
This podcast will join that with no monthly listeners.
Right. We'll all be at 0. Yeah, exactly. No monthly listeners. We're at that right now. It's great. So I did that, and I got tired of like herding cats with a band and stuff. I mean, the band would go from anywhere from being a trio to being 7 people at times, you know, like it's just a lot of, but they were really excellent players. Like my friend Ian Flanagan, who was like my best friend on the planet, he would come in and play guitar with me at times. And through that, we met Scott Moore, who played like violin on tour with Natalie Merchant. Nice. So incredible people that I got to I hope Ben never listens to this, but I have to fire the son of John Sebastian.
Oh, you told me.
Like
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
right. So like all this shit happened with this band that was just like, it was wild, but we were making noise and it was a loud band. And when we got kind of known pretty fast in the area because our first gig was in the middle of the Green in Woodstock. And, and I remember at the time, just like, I've been sober about 3 years now, man, but at the time I was working through a tremendous stage fright.
Oh.
So my first ever gig, I say this at like 30, right? I'm hanging out with my bandmates there and my drummer had just like quit a week ago. So I found this other guy who was a really good friend of mine to come in, right? And
bands.
I remember hanging out, like drinking like half a bottle of scotch before I went on. And I'm like, man, this is my first gig. And he's like, yeah, man, this is first gig for every band, Like every band has their first show, man, And I'm like, no, bro.
No, man, you
don't understand. This is my first gig. So, but it like
scary.
But somehow, yeah, it's scary, right? And I had no amp volume control, and I still don't. So I play a Vox 110 now because I played a 410 DeVille for a long time.
Oh, so loud. That's what
It's so loud, dude. It's so loud.
It hurts at number 2, like at level 2.
Right.
Can't even be in the room.
So if you can imagine this little Woodstock Green in the middle of town with just that, with the 410 DeVille,
and shaking your intestines.
A 410 and a 115 for the bass, and a twin for my lead player. And me with no volume control at my first ever gig.
Just the loudest.
Okay. The first song we played, the sound guy walked over, was like, "Hey, I can't even hear any vocals in the mains.
Yeah.
If you guys want me to be able to mix this, you got to turn down.
Yeah.
There's nothing I can do right now."
Yeah.
And I'm half a bottle of scotch in, and we're like, second song, boys. Here we go. Right? So like,
Can't hear anything.
So like, people poured out of the businesses around the greens. They're like, "What the hell is going on out here?" And they called it's broad daylight, bro.
Yeah.
So we got known as like this rowdy fucking group, man, and that's probably why they gave us gigs, is we were awful for a long time. And so anyway, but like once I got tired of all that shit and carrying that stuff around, I basically started looping and doing solo shows, and that developed into its own thing. And then at some point I just started piecing together slowly, an album like you guys did. I threw together like a live looping album at Rockport Music Hall and had that recorded. And
love Rockwood.
Yeah, it's great. And
which room did you play?
I played in room 3. I was downstairs with the piano that they don't move out of the way, But I did a live show there.
I played there twice in that room.
Is that album? Do you have that album?
I do. It's on Spotify, on YouTube. I actually did cut video and audio for it, so that way.
It's not the one you gave me, right? On your CD?
No, that's one I did before that one.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's 14 songs, and I cut all the video with it too, to where like it could.
Nice.
It's like I wanted it to be like an educational video about looping, so it cuts to my feet to show when I loop.
Very cool.
And stuff, But it doesn't land on the listener, It's like something about looping doesn't translate without a video element to it there, So, and then I started piecing together Mountain Time, and I in addition to so I hit that 30 mark you were talking about, Jimmy, with like, shit, I'm 30. What am I doing? Am I a collector or am I a player, And then at a certain point, after I did the thing in that first Rockwood album, I was like, what are you doing with all these really great fucking preamps, bro? What are you doing with like Neve pre's in your bedroom and like analog converters and shit? Yeah. And I was like, okay, I'm going to sell this stuff.
Yeah.
And it was like a big leap of faith, but it was like, and I'm going to buy a dobro.
Nice.
And a mandolin and some studio time. Nice. And that's how Mountain Time came about.
Nice. Wow.
And the reason why I came back out of all that was, COVID happens, right? And so everyone has a loss of identity and work. At that point, all my dates were canceled and shit, right? But like I turned to podcasting. I turned to interviewing professors of philosophy about shit.
Oh, that's right. You told me about that.
So that's how I became involved with podcasting. That's why I even wanted to have this idea to come do this here and stuff, right? And it actually, whether I like it or not, I am a full-time podcast. Like that's what I do. That's what pays the bills, is podcasts at this point for various entities.
There's money in this?
There is money in this, yeah. But like you, you guys probably, you went to school for shit, and like I never went to like an actual like liberal arts kind of college thing, you know. So I am perpetually feeling like an imposter, like I snuck into journalism through the basement window or something.
I just,
you know,
English is all I did.
Yeah,
I learned to write words, and then suddenly I fell into journalism.
Yeah.
Just, it wasn't like I went to school for journalism.
No, me neither.
But as I'm sitting here with you guys, though, man, there seems to be this theme of like I was sitting on the couch where you are right now, Garrett, and on the wall there's a mirror that has like. On this mirror, there are designs that are supposed to look like the spines of books, and they have, you know, Oliver Twist and A Tale of Two Cities, and it's, you know, and it's. I was sitting here, I'm like, why is there Gone with the Wind in there? I thought this was like a Dickens themed mirror or something, you know. But clearly, Jimmy, this is your house. That's your mirror. You have a reverence for literature. You know?
Very much so.
Right,
Yeah.
and you do as well. And mine came from my mom, who's an English teacher.
That's right. Yeah.
So like, there seems to be something with us songwriters around books and guitars, man.
Yeah,
you know?
I think that's Jonathan Bird. I don't know if you've ever jammed that songwriter. Amazing. He's a Carolina songwriter. He said, "Good reading makes good writing."
That's right.
So you got to put interesting things in your head, written things. And even if it's not songs, I mean, of course, we all listen to a lot of music, but man, literature and like finding that literary thing that you like and trying in some small way to kind of duplicate the feeling of that in a song is kind of one of my reoccurring, like, you know, if I can write something as literary as a Cormac McCarthy novel and do it in 3.5 minutes, dude, I've done it. You know, like that's, and when I talk to, speaking of Robert O'Keefe, when I talk to him, that's what he does, man. He's got a cabin on his property. He leaves the house and goes out to this cabin without his wife, without the kids, and he takes Cormac McCarthy and Larry McMurtry books, and he just sits and writes for like weeks. And so ever since then, I was like, yeah, man, you gotta. I mean, I always love to read, but like,
Is it kind of what you were doing in Santa Fe or something like that recently?
yeah. So when we went up to Taos, that was basically. I mean, we did. I'm a huge history buff too. Like I love history, and I love Old West history. I particularly love Old West history and the kind of like tenuous like difference between the myths that we've been taught about that and the actual truth of what happened. You know, when you go back, I'm a huge fan of a movie called Lone Star by John Sayles. I think we were talking about this because he's got a movie about unions called Mate One, which is incredible. But that movie, Lone Star, they were showing it in the political science class that I was part of as the English part of the triad is what they called it. So I was teaching based on that political science class, but teaching writing through those resources basically. And they showed Lone Star, and Lone Star is the story of a modern day sheriff who comes back to this small Texas town and is basically trying to solve this 30-year-old murder that is racially motivated. And it's fascinating. And it's a fascinating, like, so what Sayles does, which Sayles came to Delmore not that long ago, got to watch.
Wow.
So what Sayles does is like his staging, like the way he does flashback is that he will actually just stage it in the same frame. And so you'll basically, so McConaughey's in it and Chris Christopherson's in it. And so one scene, and Chris Cooper is the main character. He's like the main guy that comes to the sheriff.
I knew we were going to talk about movies.
Yeah. But what happens though is they will be talking about the story, and instead of a dissolve like you normally do with a flashback, the camera pans and then you're in the past. And it's really cool the way they said it. And ever since I saw that movie, I thought, man, if I could do that with songs, like it's a really cool way of like, I love this idea of investigating what really happened compared to like the mythologies we've been taught. Because we've been taught so many mythological things about the Old West, right? We have all these crazy like theories, and then like, you know, Kit Carson is this Western hero, and then post like 1970, there was a movement by Native American indigenous groups to like basically bring Kit Carson down a peg because he was this, you know, this butcher. And so like the weird areas between that. And so I've written a song about Carson that's kind of like talks about this kind of discrepancy between this dime store hero or dime store novel hero that he was seen as at the turn of the century, and then the butcher, and then what's the actual historical figure, and like, yeah, so that's the kind of stuff I think about, like when I write songs. And I have a song that I've been working on forever that's about the Buffalo Soldiers, which is a crazy side of history that like hardly ever gets mentioned. After the Civil War, the 9th and 10th Cavalry, black soldiers,
Right.
you know, sometimes we're just now fresh ex-slaves coming to the frontier to help with the indigenous issue, like trying to move those folks into reservations, but then getting flack from the white settlers in that town.
Right.
And then just the back and forth of that. And like, yeah, it's just.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many ways that we remember history that are incorrect. And, you know, and like the fact that there was like a huge population of black cowboys.
It's huge. I mean, that was the whole image that we have of cowboys comes almost entirely from black cowboys and vaqueros. And so they're both very this idea of what we think of as a cowboy. It was not necessarily a white guy. Most times it wasn't. So it's kind of an interesting. So yeah, like that kind of stuff just fascinates me, especially if it's Texas history.
I've been thinking along those lines with like the vaquero influence lately, and because I've been rocking cowboy hats, I just went and bought a couple felt hats. I got hats now. I'm like,
part of Texas,
you know, part of Texas.
Yeah,
and it's also
that's
like
the thing. You throw a rock and you hit a historical crazy thing that's happened here.
Yeah.
And like the songs just spill out of them. You know? You don't have to do much. It's there.
It's there, dude.
The crazy. So did I ever tell you the story? I don't know if you've heard my song "Devotion." It's a song about a guy named Britton Johnson, who was a black cowboy. He was still a slave, but his owner on this piece of land basically gave him a free reign to do what he needed to do. Family basically gets, while he's out on a I don't know what he was doing, but he was gone, and the family gets attacked by Comanches, and a couple of the kids die, and the Comanches steal a daughter and the wife, and Britton Johnson basically goes out into what they call Comancheria, all that state plain area up in the Panhandle, and negotiates with the tribe to get his family back. And so what's crazy about that is, I don't know if you've ever seen, there's a John Wayne movie called The Searchers, and it's like one of those classic westerns that John Ford directed. But the character, so there's a novel by Alan LeMay called The Searchers. As he wrote that novel, the historical figure he was thinking of for that main character was Britton Johnson, this black cowboy. Ended up being played by John Wayne in this movie. How insane is that? That's a difference.
Wow.
Yeah. For the discrepancies between history and like what actually, what we see. You know?
Right.
So anyways, that song came out of that devotion.
Yeah. I write songs about being sad. I wish I could lend my 2 cents to this conversation.
But also it's all inspiration though, going back to books and like that. I read to get inspired, same reason I listen to music, same reason I go see live music. Like it always inspired me to write more. And like the festival has a very good way of crumpling me because it's like, oh, I'm still so far away from
you.
Yeah, I'm so far away from being the songwriter that I want to be.
For me, it's so much inspiration truncated into this short amount of time that you have to pick up a guitar and play.
You do.
You have to pick up a guitar and write.
It's a self-sustaining thing.
You ever go to a show and it pisses you off though? Like you ever
Well, it pisses me off enough to want to write.
Yeah.
Like this guy, if he can get up on stage and play that guitar, then I can do that.
All the time.
Okay, let's go. Let's go do that.
Let's do that. Yeah, all the time. That's all. Yeah. Or I have that feeling frequently with like when I went to this conference in Austin a couple of weeks ago, like Swerfa, yeah, just being there and just being like pissed off that they're so good, and it's just like. These people,
so many of them,
so many of them on a different level. Like, where are you guys even coming from musically? You're like on a different planet, like some of these folks that are, and then being blown away when they sit and listen to my songs and they're like, hey, that's a great song. Like that just drives me further to keep writing, just like, it's just, it's an amazing thing. And that's probably why it's partially the selfish, the CC Songwriters thing. We keep the inspiration going.
Hang on, maybe this will be an interesting question here. But is there an artist, like locally or regional, to you that gives you that feeling when you hear them?
Locally or man, both probably. Well, these guys.
Ordinary Elephant.
Yeah, so I'm wearing an Ordinary Elephant shirt for the folks that are listening. Ordinary Elephant is a group that they live in Louisiana, but they're originally out of Houston. Husband and wife duo, and just I met Ordinary Elephant speaking of Swerve, about 10 years ago at Swerve, and I liked them. And they have a style. She plays guitar, he plays banjo. Sometimes he plays the what does he call it? It's the giant mandolin.
Bouzouki?
It sounds like
Bouzouki, or is it a mandola?
It's mandola, yeah. I play that
Okay.
sometimes. Very cool. Saw him, I became friends with him. And then a couple of Swerves later, or it might have been at the Carroll Folk Festival, I watched them again. And it was a hotel room. It was in Swerve. Watched them again, and they played a song that I hadn't heard yet. And everybody in the crowd was singing along to it. And I thought, "Ooh, is this a cover? What is this?" It was their song Best of You, which is basically inspired by Guy Clark. But the song was that good, and it spread that far just from being that good in the short amount of time it had been written, that it was already famous. And so they released an album with that song called Before I Go, which is just this incredible album that is it is the barometer in my mind of what songwriting can be. And the reason I even recorded my own album and had the courage to do it is because I saw them as my friends recording something that artistically good.
Yeah.
And it wasn't something that was just like, this is good enough, some songs that we put on there, and they thought about it. They thought about the sequence. The lyrics were so thoughtful, the instrumentation, like it's a piece of art,
Yeah, I mean, that's a lost art.
Yeah.
Sequencing on albums.
Sequencing and really thinking of, like, they really thought this through. And
it's amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, those guys. Yeah, definitely.
Ordinary Elephant.
Yeah. Ordinary Elephant. But man, like I said, at the festival, pretty much everyone, Adam Carroll.
That was my answer.
Amazing, dude.
No shit.
Adam Carroll, Chris Carroll.
Yeah, he's just got such a homespun, like, seemingly like kind of unobtrusive, like he doesn't want to get in your way with the song, and then they just creep up on you, and they're just so good.
Seems like it seems like it's so effortless.
Exactly.
But they put the work in because they're so good. There's not a wasted syllable. I mean, they're perfect songs. Perfectly written.
I feel that way about George too.
Yeah, George Inslee.
Have you heard George?
No.
George
George people.
Yeah, George is an Austin guy who was a friend of Talon's. One of those dudes that's been around for a while. Has actually been playing music for 50 years. They just a couple of years ago celebrated his 50-year anniversary, and his music was put in the Houston archives. And so,
wow,
yeah, but just one of those old-time troubadour dudes that.
Yeah, he was in the same grouping as like Blaze Foley. And,
all those guys.
All
those guys, Richard Dobson and George. He's just one of those the old-time craftsmen that just really pick every word carefully and just. There's no wasted words, and songs work on multiple levels, and it's just so good.
Yeah, George has been playing our festival since the very first one. Like he's got
awesome.
Him and Claude Butch Morgan have
CBM.
have a just a set invitation to they'll play
You guys
as long as they'll play.
Yeah,
and they're there, and he's going to be putting on a workshop in the 2024 festival. It's been a few years. I think it was since 2020 he's been on a workshop, and I always love just the way he breaks down.
He really makes you think about songs, and George is the reason I think of the word prosody. He talks about the word prosody a lot, and prosody is the shape that the song wants to be. You get your certain words that, and we know it as a songwriter, when you have something that you want to say, and you say it a certain way, and you sing it doesn't feel right, that word. Right. You're like, wait a second, I need to think of the shape of this, And that's one of the things that he talks about in his workshop, which is really interesting.
He says prosody being letting the song be what the song wants to be. I know there's a word that I can't ever remember that I wish I could have retained at the time that I took notice of it. There was a word that described the relationship between syllables conjoining to melody.
Ooh, what is that word?
Right, I don't know what it is.
See,
right,
I should know that. I'm a writing teacher.
So, but stuff like that is like there's some words don't sing well.
Some words don't sing well. That's exactly right. Yeah.
I had a moment like that the other day. I was sitting at home playing Radiohead's "Lucky."
Yeah, it's a great song.
And there's a part at the end.
Or no, from
OK Computer, right. So Lucky at the end, he's like, it's going to be a glorious day. And there's that one time when he hits that high note, dude. Right.
How many syllables does he throw in? Yeah.
It's like a 9-syllable thing he did, right? But it's a long O sound he's doing that with.
Yeah. It's perfect.
And it was like the biggest clash to where I'm sitting there playing it thinking I'm doing a good job pulling this off, playing guitar.
Yeah.
And it comes to that line.
And you're like,
and now it's a mess.
Yeah.
I mean, but this isn't like what you'd encounter with like, say, like, I don't know, like a Chris Stapleton thing where he takes like, when you're as smooth as Tennessee whiskey in the chorus, you're as whoa. Whatever, right?
Runs,
like a little run, right? Like you count those syllables.
Yeah.
That still makes sense.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that is.
Because Tom York, it's British.
Right.
It's weird.
Right. So.
Wait, I got lost. Chris Stapleton is British?
No, Tom York.
Right. So yeah, talk about the festival, guys. I mean, like I said, I'm new to the scene, man. I moved here and I got here maybe close to 2 years ago now, I think. And
it hasn't been that long.
Yeah,
no freaking way.
I got here and I chilled for a while because I didn't really feel hungry for any of this.
See,
stuff,
when you reached out to me, it's only been about a year, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm not that like crazy that
I got here. I didn't plan on like getting a job. I was just going to hit the breweries and see what I could do.
Yeah.
And then I got offered a 40-hour-a-week job, and so I was like, wow, you guys are going to pay me? And I can, okay, great. So I took that and did that for a while. I was like a day walker and shit, and.
What was it? Was that the Olive Garden?
No, it wasn't Olive Garden. No, thankfully I have not had to do that since.
You didn't work 40 hours at Olive Garden?
No, I did. Well, it was probably 35, so they didn't have to insure me and shit.
Exactly.
And all that shit.
Exactly.
Right?
That's a whole other thing.
We can talk at some point about the vitriol I have.
Don't
For the Olive Garden. It's like the reason I can't enjoy Frank Sinatra or Tony Bennett or Dean Martin. Any of that shit. Any crooners are right.
This has nothing to do with songwriting, but I'll always have a place for the Olive Garden. So
right, and as a lot of people do, It was a fancy restaurant you went to celebrate at.
That was our fancy.
That or Red Lobster, which was the same company.
Of course. Oh yeah.
Chili's was a big deal when I was a kid.
I worked at Macaroni Grill for a while.
Nice.
Right.
So
we've all done our time.
Johnny Carino's or something. Yeah.
Man, I remember Carino's.
So I guess we've all worked in an Italian restaurant at some point.
Can we get...
I'll tell you though, what's funny though is that you go to an Italian restaurant down here and it's probably crowded as fuck, right? But like you go to, I was living in upstate New York, right? So you go to Kingston at the Olive Garden, it's crickets, dude.
Really?
It's crickets.
Oh yeah, because there's probably
there's real Italian food everywhere.
Good stuff, yeah.
It's
like trying to go to like a Mexican food like Taco Bell here.
So there's a place here in town that's a really fancy Italian place. So like,
so Bellino's is pretty fancy.
It's one of my favorites.
Yeah. Was there a place? As my mom, I was living in upstate New York, eating all the authentic Italian food I could want at any point. It was good shit. It was pizza. I'm a pizza snob now, right? But I came back down and my mom was like, you got to go to this Italian restaurant with me.
Bellino's is probably the closest.
There was another one downtown for a while.
Yeah, Bella Luna. They're still there. Yeah.
For reasons I've already disclosed, I've not patroned any of these places. I just don't. It's like I like to not have pasta.
So you hate Italians?
What you mean? No.
It's a me.
So I teed you up to talk about the festival, bro, and you decided to talk about the Olive Garden. So,
oops. So there's this thing called the festival, the Corpus Christi Songwriters Festival, February 16th through the 18th of next year. We're going to be doing it.
Yeah. That's the rumor.
That's the rumor. Theoretically, we'll be doing it. We've been doing.
Got a lot of interested folks in coming down, especially from Swervo. Lots of folks.
That excited me the most.
Our reputation preceded us. People knew about Coach from the KVWH, whatever that show is, the radio show in the Hill Country. He was like, I've heard of you guys. And they were all very excited.
Yeah, it's stories like that where people are, and I get messages quite often from songwriters asking, are we going to do the festival? Because I love this festival. I love what you guys are doing, this kind of stuff. This is the inspiration behind everything that we do. This is why we do this. And I don't know. It melts my heart every time I get stuff like that.
I don't think we do anything particularly different with the festival that other people don't do. It's just maybe it's because we're still very mom and pop that people like it.
You know,
And we're songwriters too. Like I think people.
It's a festival run mostly by songwriters.
Yeah.
And
it's been just wildly successful beyond anybody's wildest dreams. Like the last couple of years.
Oh yeah, the 2020 festival before COVID, we had Ben Queller as headliner.
This year was insane.
It was. I mean, the 2020 festival was crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, the success that we had with that.
Yeah.
And then we had until 2023, nothing happened in between except for in the rounds.
Yeah.
Because of COVID, but. And then 2023 happened, and I went in like cold. Like I was like, all right, no expectations.
We
Period.
weren't sure what was going to happen after all the time off, and
the
was awesome.
2023 festival.
You were there, Jules.
I was there.
You played the festival. This is your first festival.
Yeah, this is a great night.
And then we kidnapped you, and you haven't left yet.
That's right. Yeah, man. Yeah, I will say that, like, when I say I'm delighted to find a thriving songwriter community in Corpus, I mean that with like all of my heart, man. Because the last couple of years I was in New York, I came out of COVID, and I guess what really struck me and the big lesson learned was that, like, without community, our projects don't have meaning.
Yeah.
And like without an audience.
Exactly right.
Like, I mean, this is a meaningful conversation, but we don't have an audience yet, right?
Yeah.
It's like we're talking to no one, but there's a radical freedom in that, is talking to no one.
Like, honestly, I would
everyone.
still be having this conversation if these
Right.
Yeah,
mics were here.
Right, right. But what I took out of COVID, and the lesson for me was that, like, community is what was most important to me.
Yeah.
And so I decided, instead of, because I just didn't have the internal fire or desire to go back and play music. What I wanted to help support it again in a role of like production or something. And so I ended up being production manager at a venue in Woodstock, and I did like 150 shows over the course of the next couple of years. And it was great. It was a wonderful role. And I was in the middle of a community and things, and it's awesome. So, and then my mom had a health scare, and I moved down here to hang out with her and be there. Yeah. And so coming down here to find
see something's here,
that there's something here, because this wasn't here in like 2005, dude.
No, dude. When I got here in 2003, Jimmy, you can probably speak to this. It was God bless them. It was mostly metal and reggae cover bands.
It was, I mean,
not those guys.
The songwriter scene was non-existent. It was, you found the pockets, but when I say pockets, you found one guy in this corner and one guy in this corner, and they hate each other.
And Surf Club Open Mic really consolidated.
That really did. Honestly,
it was a godsend.
Which, speaking of Surf Club Open Mic, I meant to say this at the time, but we got to get Dietz on the show, because was talking.
So he was another. You asked the question of like local or regional favorite acts.
He's always amazing.
He's a Corpus Christi Songwriter Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
He's played our festival I think every year. I'm pretty sure he's played every year at the festival. And he's probably locally my favorite songwriter.
Yeah.
And it's not because we co-wrote a song together.
That guy's effortless. Like
for sure.
He's just like, it just pours out of him. Him and Tyler, I feel the same way about Tyler McCumber too, though.
Yeah,
Tyler's just incredible.
Tyler is underappreciated.
He really is.
He doesn't get out as much as he should.
No,
but he should be like,
his voice is incredible.
Put up on the pedestal. He's so good,
incredible,
so good.
Mm-hmm.
But I had a point I was going to make, and then I went off on Tyler and Ty.
So you were talking about Ty Dietz about
No, it was before Ty.
Before Ty.
When we first moved here, there was not any.
Oh, yes. Yeah. In 2006, I was playing the open mic night at Surf Club, and I had just recorded this album. I put album loosely because it was a bunch of demos that I put together to make an album.
Did I? I probably have that.
It was an album called Broken and Healing. And,
I got that.
And then I started talking to David Martinez, another local regional musician, and he tours as well. And we started talking about going on this tour. Yeah. And so we just, went on tour. And the main reason was no one appreciated original music locally, is what I meant to say. And so we decided, like, fuck, we'll get out of Corpus and see what happens. And that was my first time on the road. We went west all the way through, New Mexico, Arizona to California, went up the West Coast, Pacific Coast Highway, worked our way back through Montana. Nice. I got the shits in Montana. There's no rest stops in Montana. There's non-existent. So the whole time I hate Montana because of
perfect place to shit in nature.
Right. and then worked our way home. But
Don't think I haven't.
But
done
the fact,
it before.
the only reason we went on that first tour, is because we couldn't get the appreciation for original music here locally,
Which is crazy.
So
because
it's hit or miss, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I thank Corpus Christi for that at that time, because I wouldn't have gotten out. I wouldn't have had that experience, and that was one of the best experiences of my life.
And you had that, and brought that feeling back.
But bringing all of my experiences back into that is, a big reason why Corpus Christi Songwriters exists.
Yeah, exactly.
So that was a long-winded point.
It's true. I mean, and then it's kind of crazy to think, though, because Surf Club in the 80s, man, you see all the stuff on the wall, like, those are all original songwriters. Like, these crazy, amazing. Yeah.
Right.
These are all singer-songwriters.
What the fuck was going on back then?
Yeah.
The main thing is everyone got complacent. Everyone just wanted cover bands, just put in the background.
Yeah.
And that's it.
And Cantina Santa Fe apparently also had a lot of original stuff.
I mean, man.
And then remember, so they also did the Burning Bush Coffee House for a long time. Those were great. Dude, it was like a listening room thing that they used to do with the Presbyterian.
I remember a place called the Lotus Cup.
Yeah, Lotus Cup was very cool. It's bulldozed now. It's gone.
It's gone now. But I went to the open mic night there many times. In fact, I took over the open mic night and hosted that for about a year.
Yeah, I played there many times.
Wow. Yeah. Well, that's like my farthest reaching memory of music in the before times.
It's all
it's just Chuck Cantu used to take me down there, So man.
Wow, my buddy.
Yeah, that was the place where I learned about blenders during the set. Like the Lotus Cup, where like you're just playing, and then all of a sudden the blender kicks in, and you develop that reflex in real time, right then and there. That was the spot.
You could hear everything in there. Yeah. It's like playing a Cafe Calypso, and they put on the friggin'
Cafe Calypso.
Yeah, Calypso was another big one too. Calypso and Half Price, even before I worked at Half Price.
So for the listeners that aren't from Corpus Christi, Half Price Books in Corpus Christi has a coffee shop attached. That's the most unique thing I've seen across the freaking country.
It's not a very common thing,
and it's so good.
Yeah, right. It was one of those places too that they were very open about Friday and Saturday night music, and so we had, before I had the listening room, before I had really gotten to do the radio. I did the radio show at the time, but what we were trying to do was, some of the songwriters eventually started coming to the fest. We would play like an 8:30 to 10 spot at the Cafe Calypso, and I think we get like $120 for that, and I just give it to the artist from out of town. So I brought down Jamie Harris, I brought down Libby Koch, all these people that are now playing the festival, or Jamie's in it. Yeah,
you got Jamie Harris for $120.
Yes, and then Ordinary Elephant.
I'm gonna
bring them to stay too, though.
I'm gonna bring that up to them when I book them next.
No, but they had to play. But they had to play stay. But it was a small attempt to try to bring in some,
of course,
singer songwriters, because Calypso at the time, people would wander in from the store, sit and drink their coffee, and straight up listen to original music. They liked it. Well, and so it was cool. It was very cool. Marcy's another one of those, along with Grace Summey, that kind of helped with the development of the whole CC Songwriters thing. I feel like.
Well, for sure.
With her patronage, basically.
That's awesome. I think when I got here, it's so nerdy of me, man. I was like not really looking to gig immediately, but I was like,
I'm glad you did.
I was like, I'll tell you what did it.
Good to hear you.
Thank you. I got here, and then I met Chisholm, and that's what kind of brought me back out of shit, but like, I think I met, or no, I didn't meet Marcy, is her name, right, at Calypso, but I was like, I don't know if I'm going to get right now, but I can organize a chess tournament.
Hey,
so I went down there to ask about that sort of stuff.
Did you organize that?
I did not, but I found other chess tournaments.
They did. Yeah, they did that all the time down there.
They told me they were a little wary about chess tournaments down there because of how chess players are. Oh, is that right?
We're some musicians?
Jesus. Right?
What the fuck, dude?
Yeah, what's going on?
What does that mean, right? Yeah, so you guys got the festivals coming up, and we got Surf Club, man, with Matt Martinez as a feature, right?
Yeah.
November 12th.
November 12th.
I think that's right. And it's
every second Sunday.
Every second Sunday. So the reoccurring thing that we do on a regular is every second Sunday of the month, we do what's called the In the Rounds. where we basically have, for folks that haven't heard or don't know about it, we basically have an open mic for original local music. And we have one.
I hate the words open mic for it.
It's not really an open mic,
Can we call it open stage?
It's an open stage, yeah. And so basically we have a featured songwriter comes and plays 3 songs or so at the beginning. And then we have open spots, 10 open spots for people to come and play their original music. And that's our regular, that's the thing that we have that's reoccurring. And so Matt Martinez is going to be doing that in November, second Sunday in November at Surf Club. Matt is a local singer-songwriter, another guy that does an open mic at House of Rock. He does they do Tuesday night House of Rock. But Matt's just like a Renaissance man that's just, you know, been in every band in town.
Speaking of looping.
Incredible looper, incredible guitar player, he's grown into an incredible singer, just a great songwriter
He's
now.
Currently doing the score for my latest movie.
That's right. Yeah. So he's so Matt and so he has been wanting to do this for a long time. But of course, like every working musician, he has a regular gig on Sunday nights. And so he was like, when I approached him last month, we were gonna have him for this last one. He's like, oh man, I got a gig, you know, but next month I'll do it. And so he's super excited. He actually had me one night and a couple other local folks do in the rounds at House of Rock, where we did just a song spot. We just went down the line. Matt started and I would play, and then who else was there? The 2 folks from Adam Stern and Lori.
Voodoo Logic.
Yeah, Voodoo Logic. They did an acoustic set. Jose Del Toro.
Wow.
I haven't even heard him yet. He's amazing. He was there. Somebody else was there, and I can't remember. But from that time, he's been like, "You guys got to have me out. I want to do some stuff. You know, when I do that." So he always tells me that the reason he started doing more of the solo stuff and like more acoustic and songwriting was because of my song "Hand in the Dark." He was like, "I love that song, man. I like, dude." But yeah, so he'll be doing that second Sunday in November, and we'll be doing one in December. Of course, it's basically going to be our end of the year party. We'll have some featured songwriters. Matt Holt might be coming out for that one. January, a songwriter from up north is coming down. Joel White, who's a country. He just won an award for the Western Music Association. Like,
oh wow,
yeah. He's a great singer songwriter. I think he's in Fort Worth. And then the February will be festival, and then March is going to be a soul singer from Austin named Erica Michelle.
Yeah, which
she's awesome.
We compromised because I had tried to book her for the festival,
but she
double booked herself, so she couldn't play.
Yeah,
so we were like, all right, you're gonna be our first feature song.
Yeah, after the festival.
Right.
It'll be good. But I have a question for you guys before it feels like wrapping up.
Sure.
Where do you see this going? This podcast?
Make us famous.
Well,
I mean, other than money, right?
Apparently there's money in podcasts. What the hell?
Well, I'm coughing after I hit this vape here, dying. So, yeah, man, this podcast, the thing about it is that, like, I came to town and found this fucking thriving, amazing community that we have. But there's a lot to quilt together. Mm-hmm. They're all disparate pieces of things and there's things about this scene, dude, that, like, as an outsider that's been in, not to say anything about it, it's a much bigger market. And so coming down here, the usual modes that I would expect to find out about a show, you run into kind of impasses. It's like sometimes you go to the venue's website, there's not a full description. Yeah. Maybe they don't list, nobody's promoted it that day. Yeah. Okay, so now you don't know who's going there, right? And you go there, but you also don't know that they print out their stuff and stick it on the wall or whatever, right? Yeah.
So now
meanwhile, right. Meanwhile, it's like people talk about a band that you can go see, and you're like, okay, well, I'm gonna go see them, and then you go see them, and you're like, wait, they're here every Tuesday or something, So it's like finding all this information out, as well as like, like where, I don't know, on any given night of the week, like I could, through just browsing social media, have a whole calendar of events based on events that I see.
Yeah.
But it seems like some artists don't even bother to create events to do that too. Yeah. Right. So like it's a really like scattered environment as
Deborah
far as
Scott Brown. God bless.
Right. Yeah. Deborah Scott Brown is in here trying to like corral all that stuff. Ronnie out on the island is trying to do that. and
Also, throw this in there. Casey Lane has been building a whole catalog of things going on.
See, that's-
well, he is the example, like, of all the people in this area. He puts together his.
We are a music-friendly city.
It's Casey.
It's Casey.
Casey.
See, I'm wondering how much of that.
Casey Lane from House of Rock.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm wondering how much of the music friendly.
Hey Casey, we're actually recording that says you're getting an award tonight. Congratulations, man. We're sorry. We're sorry we couldn't be there. Obviously, the festival and the people that come down for the festival, it'd be great to interview those people, and we'll talk to them and bring people in when we can. We got to get Dietz in here to talk to him.
Sure.
Matt is the feature, and all these interviews will happen either one-on-one or two-on-one with us. Abby will probably make an appearance at some point as well.
Of course you do.
Maybe even Casey Lane himself or something. Right?
Yeah. Casey.
So,
for me,
yeah.
all of the above.
Yeah.
Plus, I want to break down the songwriting process occasionally.
I like hearing people talk about this songwriting process,
which will happen naturally with the songwriters we bring in, that kind of stuff. But also, I talked about it the reason why I went on my first tour, because everyone was in their little corners and no one was paying attention to each other, and there's not really a songwriter scene here locally. And what you've been talking about, and a big reason why you're here, is because it seems like there's these little cliques in town.
Yeah.
And we want to open the bridge. We want to open, just like invitation to everybody, and let's just talk. Let's just get to know each other.
Yeah, man. Right.
That's the idea.
We can get Deborah in here and hang out, tell us about what's going on in town or something, and
we're all in it for the same reason.
Yeah.
And honestly, we should all be in it for the betterment of the music scene in Corpus Christi.
That's the idea.
So
Make it a safe place for songwriters to live.
Right.
To live and come to.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think.
Yeah. Well, I'm also hoping to bring people in that I have the privilege of interviewing at times with Steam Magazine.
Yeah.
Because I have to have conversations with them, and the way that my process works is that I have to record the conversation, throw it in a transcription thing, and then, and so it'd be great to be able to bring some of those people in too from further away, So this podcast, man, I think it's overdue, but I'm glad that it's here, and I'm glad that we're doing it. And we had kind of a rough list of things to talk about. This seems like a really sweet time to stop, but there were still a couple things on the list. So, well, first of all, I feel the need that we should talk about right now is like right now, if you. And actually, I'm just connecting these dots here, and I'm going to say, if you wanted a listening room right now, I'm not really sure where you'd find one inside of Corpus Christi proper, but I know that our friend John Macy is throwing incredible listening room, small shows in Rockport.
Yeah,
monthly.
Yeah, with pretty
with
big artists.
Really talented writers. I just attended Amy Speece. Out there.
That was so sad I couldn't make that one. Yeah. And then
Was it awesome?
It was really good.
Had to have been amazing.
It was amazing. Yeah, it was great. I took some photographs and with John. I kind of just showed up and snuck in at the last moment and photograph stuff. And it was I was walking up the stairs at this little place. So for listeners, it's called the Harbor Room Listening Series.
Yeah.
Is what it's called.
It's upstairs at the hotel.
It is upstairs in the Inn at Fulton.
There we go. The Inn at Fulton.
The Inn at
Couldn't think of the name
Fulton.
of it.
Yes. And the Inn at Fulton, the arrangement that John and I forget his business partners, Craig owns Charlotte Plumbers next door. And by the way, now you can read about some of this stuff in this issue of Steam Magazine, South Texas Entertainment Art Magazine. I interviewed John Macy.
Nice.
And so this article,
Coast of Bend Music, and then also has John Macy Studios. And dude is a legend.
He is incredible, but he's somehow a little stealthy around these parts too, because I'm like, brother, you're like, people know you, but then people don't know you, and it's like you feel like the best kept secret in this in this part, So,
He was
anyway, so John Macy through his Amy Speece show at the Harbor Room, and I was walking upstairs at the last minute. And Amy Speece walks out of her room at the top of those stairs, and we're both like turning the corner at the same time. It's totally unintentional. I'm just messing with my camera.
So you were
Yeah,
camping
right.
outside of her room before?
Right. I was in the bushes,
Yes.
hanging out there with binoculars, and so anyway. But like, I didn't recognize her, and nothing, but I was like, hi, are you going to the show?
She's like, oh,
And she's like, no, she says, yeah, I heard she's pretty good. And I was like, oh, hi, Amy, it was kind of funny, man, but so she went straight to the stage and plugged in, and John, introduced her, and I got a couple photographs of them. And, but yeah, really, really great show to take in. I know that there's not many good examples to point to of like shows that are like what John is doing out in Rockport. It's a like pin drop quiet kind of environment, very intimate singer, songwriter, solo, one guitar, no frills, sort of performance. And there's a lot of talk in between songs about how these songs were made or what inspired them or what led them to these lyrics. And so those of you out there, which we know if you're listening to this podcast, part of you is probably looking for some sort of experiential songwriting event thing at times. And we're here to talk about all those things too. So there's a lot that we can do with this podcast, man. I don't know about Sirius Radio and, syndication and,
I just want to continue with that. Like there's nothing listening room adjacent, if you will, other than our festival on occasion.
Festival over Third Coast Studios. In Port
Aransas, Texas.
Nothing in Corpus.
But what John Macy is doing in Rockport is unparalleled at the moment. Garrett, you and Abby and Stephen Hansen, former president of Corpus Christi Songwriters.
Churchyard was the same way.
Did the Churchyard, which is a listening room environment.
Well, that's the whole thing too. Is that the thing with Corpus that it comes down to that maybe the podcast can help with, and I'm always hoping CC Songwriters can help with, is that there's music for beer drinking and talking over, and and you're enjoying and you're listening, but there is a listening room environment thing that we were trying to cultivate at Churchyard, and we try to do at CC Songwriters. It's a hard thing to do, but to have people go and to not to be rude and be mean and say you guys gotta shut up, but to like introduce.
I've done that before.
You have, I know. You introduce the set though and say, hey, this is about these songs, and like if you have conversations that you need to have, or you have a phone call, take them outside, keep it to a minimum. The idea is we're here to listen to the songs. And the Churchyard, by the end of it, we were getting 75 to 100 people, and you could hear a pin drop in there. And it was, it's just a matter of having a fairly controlled environment, like a room.
And you brought it up earlier, the
Burning Bush Coffee House.
They did a really good job for a while of doing that.
And it's basically you build a culture.
You
have people that come that are already looking for that.
The main thing is training the audience. Locally. No offense, Corpus Christi, but the audience locally is not trained.
No,
to sit there and listen to a song. And wait until the songwriter's done to go order their drink. Or to talk to whoever they're with. It's just,
and not that people wouldn't be into that. It's just a matter of,
it's just understanding the culture of what we're trying to present, and it's a long road. I think we'll get there. I think it's important.
In House of Rock, when when you were in House of Rock, it's fairly silent in there. We got really good. So it's harder to do in Surf Club because it's outside.
Right.
You got people that just walk in, and you can't. It's hard.
There's certain places you can control only so much. So I just have to plan for that.
But it's an educational part of it too that I think the podcast is nice to be like. Hey man, these people put a lot of work in these lyrics and these songs, and if you go to a show like that, you're there for the show. You're there for the music,
So I also want to say, and we don't have to stay too long at this point, but I would say that metal music, there's like a couple different metal cliques in this town. Right. Metal is something that people attend and people like, and
long history.
And it does.
It's a rich history.
It's right. And so when I think of this podcast and songwriting and metal,
add on to that.
Yeah.
Metal for sure, 100%. And I know you have a lot to say about that.
Sure.
But also punk.
Okay.
There was a huge punk scene here in Corpus Christi as well.
Yeah.
And
especially in the 80s, it was big, along with the metal and the hardcore scene. Anchor Watt, they got their star on the Walk of Fame,
Right.
Yeah.
I would just say that, like, metal, I mean, when I talk to talk about songwriting with metal musicians, it's still songwriting, and it's still like it's like a riff based writing, you know. So I was just saying the other day, it's like what is it? They're either riffs, lines, or depending on whose company you're with. Like if you're like with your studious friend who plays jazz, that's a line.
Yeah, right.
You're with your metal friend, it's a riff. You know,
The lick.
The lick.
But it's still song. I mean, those people too, like getting them on the show too, because it's all songwriting. You know, like the whole idea is songwriting. You know,
right? And that's the whole thing about bridging the gap, right?
Yeah.
So bring it all in, understand each other, if you will.
And it goes back to like when we're talking about having a reverence for like literature as well, like Steve Earle is probably like my favorite songwriter of all time. And when I listen to him speak about songwriting and he uses the term like being a post-Dylan writer it made me, and when he talks about his songs being solvent poetry, like that's to me, it's like there are some days I go to bed thinking maybe I'm more of a poet than a songwriter, but to me it was like more challenging to place poetry to melody, all that to say is that
I can spend an hour on that. We can't tonight.
We can't tonight. We can't right now, But
What did Steve Earle? Didn't he say that? I love Towns, and his quote about Towns is like, I think Towns is the best songwriter in the whole world, and I'll stand on Bob Dylan's coffee table in my boots and tell him that.
Right. Yeah, but Steve Earle, the last time, he posted when he attended a Bob Dylan show and Bob Dylan played in the city. I'll tell you, man, I had to stay in New York City a while back where, speaking of like literature and music, it was an incredible day. We had plans to go to see Steve Earle at City Winery.
Nice.
And before that there was an exhibit at a museum around the corner on like the Lower East Side or something. That was a James Baldwin.
Oh, nice.
Right. So
talk about killer writers, man.
Right.
Incredible.
I'm sitting there like just like tears during reading the James Baldwin stuff and looking around, like seeing like letters that he wrote to his teacher, stuff like that. And then I go to the show and I'm like, oh God, it's Steve Earle. Bye. It was an incredible day, but God, was that like emotionally draining.
Yeah.
All that, dude.
We saw Steve at House of Rock. I saw Steve at House of Rock.
I was there.
You were there. That's right. Man, that was a great show. Speaking of Dietz, open with
motherfucker. This guy's open for
dude. Dietz, Ray Wiley Hubbard, Steve Earle.
Wow.
Well, it was Dietz and who else? Peg Rossi.
There we go. Peg Rossi. Yeah.
Wow.
Peg's another
fantastic. Yeah.
Dude, he's so good. So many good songwriters.
I'm not sad because he's so good, but maybe I am.
And he's, John Macy, in addition to this. Let's go back to John Macy. Yeah. In addition,
we'll get better at this.
In addition to the Harbor Room listening series with these incredible writers, which I hear is bringing Michael Martin Murphy down. Is that right?
The fest in November, yeah.
Yeah, this is the Rockport Songwriter Festival.
He also has the Rockport Songwriter Festival, November 3rd through 5th.
Yeah. It'll be him and Libby Koch, who's a great songwriter from Houston.
She's played the festival a few times.
Who else is coming?
I'll just share this here. I felt like such an asshole that as I've been trying to get John Macy to play and come play with me, and to play steel with me. Because like the last 5 years I was in New York, I was playing with a steel player there, and John Light in New York, my steel player there, love him. He's an incredible steel player. He's in 5 different bands or something, like that in New York now, right? But John Macy and John Light knew of each other and have chatted. Of course they did. Because steel players are all in this pack, dude.
There's not enough. There's too small of a number of them. Know each other.
So they all know each other. I come down here. I link up with John. Yeah. I'm trying to get him to and I write this article, all this stuff, right? And like, John, come play with me, man. And I like, John, I got a gig November 3rd. You want to sit in? He was like, that's the first day of our festival. I'm like,
no, actually, I'm kind of upset with you because that's our songwriter. It's CC Songwriter Showcase at the Rockport Festival.
Yes.
You know
Okay,
what?
so look at
Maybe
this-
I'm
look at this
sorry.
list.
Maybe
Michael
Crafters.
Murphy, Sean Camp and Vernon Thompson, Shake Russell,
Right.
Butch Hancock, Susan Gibson, Jeff Langenhorn, Michael O'Connor, Kimmy Rhodes, Bob Livingston, Barbara Nesbitt, Dana Cooper is also an incredible songwriter, Libby Cope,
This is stacked.
and more. We're the and more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We made the and more. The
That's okay.
dot and more. But for the Friday of that festival, the 3rd,
Is us.
yeah, we're the opening showcase, the Corpus Christi Songwriters
it's gonna be
Showcase at Rockport.
Me, Jimmy, George Inslee, and John Whipple.
There you go.
Whipple's. Yeah, I'm so excited to hear him again.
It's these two songwriting legends, and then you and me.
Yeah, he said basically the boomers against us. It's like, I don't know about. I mean, I'm pretty old.
It was a decade ago that I woke up freaking out that I turned 30. So it's getting pretty close
Getting
to
old, man.
turning 40. I
know.
have no idea what's going to happen.
You know what? I just turned 40 recently. That's pretty fucking cool, bro.
Yeah. I think that I'm going to be more okay
Then
turning
30.
40 than I was
Yeah.
turning 30.
Like,
So.
all of a sudden, it's like my shoes fit.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Like you're finally the age you should have been.
yeah, dude. Like, you're
I'll be there soon.
permanent curmudgeon, sort of like, now you're there with the age.
I was
actually.
like 12 years old telling people to get off my lawn. So it makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, right?
Old man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good fest.
Yeah,
It
man.
is not the Guy Clark Fest.
No.
It is not, no.
It embodies the spirit of Guy Clark.
You ever notice everybody shuts up when somebody tells a Guy Clark story?
Yeah.
It's like the most incredible thing, dude. It's like
Who else does the?
it's like the only. It's like pardon me for a second. I just think it's like almost like Catholic churchy in a way.
Like a reverence that you, yeah. Yeah.
That people just. I mean, and I don't know if listeners have really experienced that, but it's incredible when you hear somebody just brings up Guy Clark and they're like, I was hanging out with Guy Clark. It's like everybody.
Who's our regular that comes down that played at the end of the fest? That's awesome. Songwriter that did a show workshop also.
Walt Wilkins?
Yeah, Walt. So Walt told the Guy Clark story in that fest, in the showcase or in the workshop, and he was like, the only time I really ever got to talk to Guy, we sat there and I played him a song of mine that I was pretty proud of, and he didn't say anything. Didn't say anything until the very end. And the only thing he said was, I believe I'd take the second and fourth line from that second verse and flip them. And that was it. That's all he said. And he said, and Walt said, man, Guy, I thought that song was done. He was like, they're never done. that was the only stuff, like the only thing he said. So I was like, it's awesome. Yeah. He was that like clinical about it. He was like, thinking of the structure still.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The Texas Cooking album. It's really good.
Really good. My favorite picture of you is such a great album.
Oh, yeah. There's many reasons why I, started CC Songwriters. But the biggest reason probably is my father was a huge Guy Clark fan.
Was he?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't know Guy Clark if it wasn't from my dad.
Nice.
Wow.
And so, when I started CC Songwriters at 30, I had this goal.
We'll get Guy Clark.
Getting Guy Clark.
Yeah,
And then within a year or two, he passed away. It was probably within a year, honestly. And then, but the fact that, where we are now, we could have gotten
Guy Clark. Probably just down the road. Yeah. He's from Rockport. The Ordinary Elephant, that Best of You song, they said that was inspired by. I told him one night, I said, that song always made me think it was the ghost of Guy Clark.
You guys ever hear Steve Earle do Michelangelo?
Mm-hmm.
The song he wrote about when Guy Clark died.
Oh man, no.
And it's
He's so good.
The lyrics or something. I mean, I'll have to look them up here these lyrics are incredible though, man.
It's got to be a fairly recent song.
Goodbye, Michelangelo. Ain't no trouble where you go.
I have heard this song.
Like that's a song that he wrote about Guy passing, man.
Old number one. I still need a copy of Old number one.
That's why he sings that "Oh Susanna, don't you cry."
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
in there, man, and the bridge, bro. It's like it
Brutal.
moves me every time.
Oh.
The last time I saw Steve live, he played at Bearsville Theater, and I got front row tickets, man, and I was there and just like
He was good. It was a fun show. Yeah.
He, about 3 or 4 songs from the end, he was like, "Yeah, I'll take requests," or something, and people got quiet and loud for a second.
Yeah, of course.
And I yelled out "News from Colorado," and he looked up at me and he was like, "That's a good one," and didn't play it.
That sounds about right. That's a good song. Nope.
I like that song. Quick question though,
Yeah.
maybe I can use this later or use it in this or whatever. You're gonna edit this, right?
No, we're gonna just have it come in over music and start it this whole conversation. Probably not gonna have any edits, man.
You
Anyway,
want edits? What do you want?
Right. Maybe it beeps on stuff if we mention names we want to take out later. But maybe we got to come up with rules for like an hour or something.
so this goes. First of all, probably shouldn't say this because I don't know. A lot of people don't like this movie anymore, but a lot of people do, and it's my favorite movie of all time for nostalgic reasons.
Almost Famous?
Almost Famous.
Why don't people like that?
I don't know. It apparently doesn't sit well with.
We're back to movies.
But
Is it problematic?
apparently there's certain. Anyway, we don't need to get into that.
No.
But so it's about a journalist who loves music and
one of my
so
favorite
it
movies.
spoke to me, right?
Yeah.
And the question he keeps asking the guy he's trying to get the
What do
interview
you
from, what do you love about music? And that became our question
Yeah.
that we would ask almost every person on stage
Yeah.
or in the rounds. So might as well go in the round, if you will,
Yeah.
and ask each other, what do you love about music?
Like music, if you listen to it, it'll teach you things in the same way that I find like photography or any other, art habit, compulsion,
Compulsion.
it will teach you, like you take a photograph of yourself and then you're like, wait a second, this not very interesting. Well, not you become a more interesting person, or I don't know, like it's
Yeah.
like, it's like,
Yeah.
you take a picture of your house and you're like, doesn't look great behind me. It's like, make your house, put something on the walls, and music kind of, it's incredible where music has taken me. And I feel like every bit of wisdom in this world I've acquired has come through the pursuit of wanting to make better music and have better lyrics, and it's like just been an ever-present guide that I sometimes resent, but also know that I'm married to. And
Yeah. Sounds about right.
It's work that I'm not obligated to complete, but I can't abandon it either, sort of thing. And so it's deep and abiding and always there,
There you go.
I have nothing.
You have nothing?
I have nothing.
Gary hates music.
Not as good as that. I think, man, from the earliest. So I always played guitar when I was young, and I enjoyed it. I really wasn't that into it until I got an electric guitar. Of course, a little punk ass kid, playing a really loud electric guitar. But when I was a junior in high school, I had a friend that started writing songs. A great voice, great singer. One of the kids that sang at the church, of course, and one of those people you run into that naturally gifted songwriting or singer, but needed help with songs, and I'd never written a song. And so he gave me kind of the bones of the song and said, "What can you do with this?" And I said, "Well, I've never done anything. I'll try it." And I wrote a bridge for the song. This is what it needed, and I felt like this is what I should be doing. The first time in my life I was like, okay, this makes sense now. And I think that music has not really ever stopped being that. It's a way of making meaning of all kinds of disparate strands. Like you guys know, if you're a songwriter, there's synchronicities that happen in your life that are kind of compelling you to make something out of it.
Right.
You got these things that happen, and just my song "Hand in the Dark." And so song basically came from me seeing this old couple at work, and she was, she would bring this guy in and he would buy the same National Geographics because he was very clearly suffering from early onset dementia. It was getting worse. He didn't realize he was buying the same graphic novel or the National Geographics. And I was thinking about that couple and just kind of like, I just got married and thinking like, well, this is the end point of this for both of us, like this is kind of what we agreed to. And at the same time that happened, I happened to be driving home from my parents' house from a visit in Mathis, and I had NPR on. and there was a story, a Terry Gross profile on the actor Christopher Eccleston, who was Doctor Who for a while.
Right.
And he basically talked about his father, who suffered from dementia before he died, and talked about there was a phrase that he said that Europeans use a lot, but we don't use. He had asked his dad if he knew who he was. Christopher had asked his dad, and the dad said, "No, but I love the bones of you." And that just blew me away. And that's Hand in the Dark. That's the last line of that song. And all those weird things, just thinking about being a newlywed, and also thinking about the endpoint 40, 50 years from now, thinking about that interview, thinking about that old couple, like stuff in your life has meaning, and you kind of put a bow on it for yourself that way,
Right.
Well, you try to,
Of course.
and that's what it means to me. Probably.
Yeah. It's just music in general.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, it's it's a natural jumping off point from what you said, because I consider everything I do. I'm a filmmaker, journalist, I'm a freaking novelist. Just writer in general, and musician, songwriter, storyteller. Period.
Yeah.
Just storyteller. Everything is connected through storytelling.
Yeah.
And I consider music the most distilled version of that, because you can just get to the truth immediately through the way you're singing it, through the words that you're saying, all of the above. It's just
prosody.
and if you're not,
That's true.
and you can also immediately tell when someone's not telling the truth.
Exactly.
And you can literally, put someone on trial and have them play a song, and like, all right, they're telling the truth.
Yeah.
I think that's the reason why
it is.
I'm so involved in it and so in love with music.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild. We all love this thing. We have zero fucking listeners on.
I know.
This podcast here, right?
Good conversation.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess that's it for this first episode of the Corpus Christi Songwriter Podcast. We'd like to thank you for hanging out and listening with us. Dear audience, this does not exist yet. Whether you're...
For the one person listening, you can definitely find out more at ccsongwritersfestival.com currently. And also on our social medias, Corpus Christi Songwriters on Facebook, at CC Songwriters on Instagram. And that kind of stuff. So definitely find us, because we love to find you.
Yeah, all of our stuff that we're doing is on there. So
man.
We will be doing.
Yeah. So, Garrett, where can we find you online specifically?
I am Wieland.Garrett at Instagram. And then I'm also the Independent Thieves is on Facebook. But if you just Google my name, Garrett Wieland, it's WIELAND. I have a website, everything is on there. Most of my stuff though is on my Instagram. That's usually where I post my shows, and I'm on my album from 2021 is on Spotify, and then my album with the Independent Thieves from 2015 is on there too. So yeah, you can find me there, and Instagram's the main hub really. So yeah.
You can find me on Instagram at Jimmy Wilden, JIMMYWILLDEN.
2 L's.
Yeah, 2 L's, because I'm not that wild. And and on Facebook is Jimmy Wilden with 2 L's. And also I'm a part of Yosh and Yimmy, and you can find everything there. Yosh and Yimmy. That's like Josh and Jimmy. With Y's. Yeah, YoshAndYimmy.com.
So yeah, okay.
YoshAndYimmy.com. Everything's there. So
nice.
And you, Jules?
I'm going to keep everything simple and just say go to JulesTaylorMusic.com.
Nice.
Because all my social media stuff trickles down from there. And I got a bunch of shows coming up.
Yeah,
your month is full. It's coming up. Yeah, so I got about 8 of them. It's 21st and 29th still playing. No, 21st and 30th now at Packery. And then we get into November, and there's stuff going on there. Aircrafters on the 3rd when you guys are doing your showcase. Aircrafters in Victoria.
Oh, nice.
Which is wild out there. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah,
that's a cool spot.
Scope that out, because it sounds like a cool place.
Yeah. But anyway, so I got dates on everything there, and I actually all these dates in November aren't even posted yet. There's so many of them I haven't even made flyers for. So they'll be updated at some point. But that's where you can find me. Sort of the website or Twitter, probably. It's probably where I'm most active.
You're on Twitter? Oh yeah, you are. Yeah.
I am. It's it's funny. It's like people meet me and they're like, then they go to Twitter and they're like, "What's all this stuff about?"
What's about unions?
Unions. What's going on?
God forbid, worker right. Yeah, worker right.
Wait,
So,
what's Twitter?
It's
X, right? It's X now. All right. Well, that's it. We'll see y'all next time.
With Matt Martinez.
Right. Matt Martinez, our feature.
I'm going to force him to be.
Oh, okay.
Right.
I'm gonna shoot. You good?